Bus crumbled to her board of directors that she thought LeBron James' ego was completely out of control from the day he became a Laker. LeBron James has now been proven to be a selfish, narcissistic, ungrateful, average person on a basketball court since he got to
LeBron James, the man who rewrote NBA record books and redefined longevity in pro sports, sat for an interview and casually said, "I've never been much of a numbers guy, to be honest." On paper, it sounded like a humble shrug. In practice, it landed like a paradox so loud it echoed all the way to the radio studios in New York. The clip spread fast, and one of the loudest and most unapologetic responses came from Carton, who took the statement apart on live air with the sort of blunt force logic that listeners either cheer or flinch at. What made Carton's takedown land wasn't that he hated LeBron, plenty of people have opinions on the king, it was that he simply walked through the contradiction. A player who built his public identity on statistical milestones and longevity, claiming indifference to the very thing those milestones are made of. The result was an on-air roast that felt less like punditry and more like an evidence-based call-out. Let's be crystal clear about what the quote actually implies and why people reacted. When a superstar publicly divorces himself from numbers, the natural reaction is to check the ledger. Who are you, really, if not the sum of the measurable things you've done? LeBron's career is a ledger. Scoring titles, all NBA teams, finals appearances, historic durability, and a data trail that generations of statisticians, fans, and journalists have used to measure his greatness. Saying "not a numbers guy" in that context doesn't read like humility, but like gaslighting, a line that expects listeners to ignore the receipts.
LeBron allowed the local media, or convinced the local media and the national media, to view him as a savior to the Laker franchise.
Here's the part nobody is talking about. The reason numbers matter for someone like LeBron isn't that he personally loves stat lines more than warm cookies, it's because the debates his career creates live inside those numbers. When the numbers move, the narrative moves. So when LeBron says he's not paying attention, that's not just an offhand comment, it's a rhetorical dodge in a war of legacy narratives.
Where they're trying to create a narrative where LeBron is not meddling, where LeBron is just another one of the guys, and you're telling me who the coach is, and I'll say hi to him when I come back to camp. Right. But that's just not real. You know, and I think this isn't, they're trying, it seems to me at least, that they're trying very hard to craft a different image of LeBron James that is different than what's factual. He's a coach killer. You know, he has had a lot of guys hired and has had and tried to get a lot of guys fired.
Carton's response hit because he made the obvious obvious. He didn't try to psychoanalyze LeBron's soul, he played the receipts. He reminded listeners of the many times LeBron's career has been narrated and celebrated through specific numerical milestones. The crown gesture when LeBron passed Kareem for the all-time scoring mark, the viral celebration when he ticked off another career total, and the social media posts that highlight milestone tallies. Carton used concrete examples to puncture the "not a numbers guy" line, and he did it with disdainful glee. That tone mattered. The punchline wasn't simply that LeBron contradicted himself, it was that he did so in a way that made the contradiction impossible to ignore. And the clip is explosive because it plays to two camps, one that already reads LeBron's career as a statistical colossus, and another that resents what looks like narrative engineering. Carton, rightly or wrongly, cast LeBron's comment as performative humility masking a deep preoccupation with metrics.
Was not grateful that the Lakers drafted Bronny for him.
Now, let's put numbers where Carton put them. The all-time scoring record is no small thing. LeBron's crowning himself on that specific milestone, the visual of him celebrating as the NBA's leading scorer, wasn't theater for theater's sake. It was an act scheduled for maximum symbolic resonance. When a player climbs to the top of a list that has been pored over for generations, the applause is both a recognition and and a historical ledger entry. That ledger is how historians later frame eras and comparisons. It's how fans argue ceilings and floors. So the moment LeBron claimed he's not a numbers guy, the natural historical response was, which numbers are you referring to? Because to everyone watching, he has run toward those numbers his whole career. The scoring crown is the clearest laser-cut example. It's the cliff that made the entire GOAT debate into a statistical mountain to climb, and LeBron planted his flag on the summit in front of a global audience. But the numbers that matter in this debate are multidimensional, and that's where the not a numbers guy defense collapses under scrutiny. LeBron hasn't just chased points, he's chased versatility and counting stats that prove durability and utility. Rebounds, assists, minutes played, triple-doubles. Those are not arcane metrics. They translate into minutes on the floor, matchups won, and the kind of narrative anchors that keep a legacy debate burning for decades. For instance, LeBron's career triple-doubles and his accumulation of total points, rebounds, and assists are precisely the kind of measurable achievements that future analysts will use to place him in NBA history. This is where it gets dangerous for the not a numbers guy claim. The basketball ecosystem, contracts, endorsements, Hall of Fame ballots, and GOAT debates respond to numbers. The numbers determine the incentives and the arc of a career. You can declare indifference, but if your life is run by the calculus of wins, minutes, and legacy, the numbers decide everything, whether you like it or not.
That LeBron James never showed what we would consider the appropriate gratitude for the Lakers not just drafting Bronny, but then giving him a guaranteed contract that the 55th pick in the draft has never gotten before dribbling a ball in the G League or the NBA.
Here's another layer Carton zeroed in on: performativity. Modern athletes know the optics, and LeBron has perfected them. When he passed Kareem, he didn't tweet a dry stat update. He celebrated, staged the crown, and let the cameras make the moment permanent. That's not the behavior of someone who doesn't care about numbers. That's the behavior of someone who understands their cultural significance and leverages it with surgical precision. If you act like a steward of milestones, you're not just living in the moment, you're writing the archive for how future fans will remember you. Carton's point was simple and effective. Actions speak louder than offhand lines in interviews. In practice, LeBron's behavior has been numerically literate for 2 decades, which makes a sudden claim of indifference either disingenuous or profoundly unaware of his own history. Now let's zoom out and consider what's at stake in the broader culture war this fight hints at. For years, the GOAT debate has functioned as a proxy for generational values: style versus substance, numbers versus moments, longevity versus peak dominance. When LeBron talks about not being a numbers guy, he's implicitly asking people to move the debate away from a ledger and toward narrative: how he helped teammates, how he changed sports culture, how he built businesses. Craig Carton, who sits on the other side of that ledger, refuses to let narrative trump numbers without evidence. His argument is a cultural conservatism of a kind. If you want the cultural crown, you have to be willing to let the numbers stand in the record books and have historians judge you by them. That's not just sports pedantry, it's how sports history is written. And when a public figure tries to opt out of a scoreboard that they themselves helped create, it's natural for critics to cry foul.
Of all the things we can say about LeBron James, and I've been one of the biggest critics of LeBron because he, frankly, stabbed me in the heart twice. When you consider LeBron James being involved in Laker decisions, if you're unwilling to accept the reality that LeBron James had a major voice in that room, whether it was going after Danny Hurley or now deciding on hiring J.J. Redick, then, you know, I got a tarot card reader 3 blocks from here who would love to take your business because you're a sucker.
This conversation matters because it's not academic. It has real effects on perception, contracts, and the marketplace of attention. Take endorsements, for example. Brands are buying narratives, but those narratives need anchors. Stat milestones are the anchors brands use to justify millions in deals. If the star says numbers don't matter, it creates a dissonance. Which narrative are you selling? The human story or the numerical dominance? Carton framed this as hypocrisy worth calling out, because when the money and the brand deals come, they are unequivocally attached to milestones. That's not a moral indictment so much as an economic reality. LeBron's life, like that of any modern superstar, is simultaneously a personal journey and a public product. The product's value is counted in numbers. The irony Carton exposed is that LeBron can't logically be a not-a-numbers guy and expect those numbers not to shape his legacy and value. Now, let's take a breath and be fair. LeBron's career-long relationship with counting stats is also a story of evolution. He's one of the most complete statistical players in NBA history, a scorer, rebounder, passer, defender, and Iron Man rolled into one. That breadth of measurable competence is part of the reason the debate around him is so fractious. Critics point to a perceived lack of terror or peak dominance over a short window. Defenders point to an astonishing career accumulation of performance across decades. Numbers enable both sides. The truth probably lies somewhere in a hybrid. LeBron is a statistical monument whose meaning shifts depending on which column you consult. Carton's jab landed because he made that hybridicism look like hypocrisy in a single, easily digestible soundbite.
Finally announced that LeBron James isn't an NBA basketball player? Is he going to announce it? No, we all know what's going on. LeBron James has all of you losers fooled that he was going to make a major announcement about the pending end of his storied career. And I sat back and I kicked my feet up and I said, you're all being had. Like, even when you know you're being had, you fall into the LeBron trap. It's a market.
So what does this mean for the day-to-day conversation about basketball? The TV shows, podcasts, and locker room debates that shape fan opinion. It means that every offhand line matters. In the age of viral clips and 24/7 sound bites, a quick dismissal, not a numbers guy, isn't a private take, it's a public position that will be contested, deconstructed, and memed into cultural currency. Carton's response is part of that ecosystem. He doesn't just rip apart the line, he models how to use evidence against a rhetorical flourish. That's why his takedown got traction. It's a template for how modern sports debate works. Claim, counterclaim, receipts, viral replay. Fans love it because it's theatrical. Historians will cite it because it's bound by verifiable acts. Finally, let's end with the real question that sits under all the jokes and the barbs. Does LeBron's self-description change his legacy? The short answer is no, not by itself. One interview clip doesn't undo decades of performance, but it does matter rhetorically because public memory is shaped both by moments and explanations. How LeBron speaks about his career, whether with humility, deflection, or defiance, influences how future narratives will stitch his story together. Craig Carton's on-air roast, then, is more than just entertainment. It's a cultural nudge reminding audiences that words and deeds must line up if you want to control how history reads you. In the coming years, historians and heated barroom debaters will keep citing both the numbers and the theatrical moments, and the person who wins will be the one whose narrative and ledger stay closest to each other. If LeBron wants to be remembered on his own terms, he'll have to decide whether he's comfortable with the numbers, because whether he likes them or not, the numbers will keep talking long after any interview clip fades. So, who won this round? Depends on what you value. If you prize rhetorical elegance and narrative engineering, maybe LeBron's offhand humility reads as human and relatable. If you prize consistency and the visible thread of action, Carton's fact-forward dismantling is impossible to ignore. Either way, the exchange did what good public debate should do. It forced a contradiction into daylight and let the public decide which side felt truer. Drop your take in the comments. Is LeBron sincerely done with numbers, or was that line a misstep? Either way, one thing is certain. In 2026, in a sports world addicted to both metrics and memes, you neither hide from the ledger nor escape the viral reaction when you try.